What's going on, guys? Matt over here with Gen5 DIY, and today we are installing the eyebrow harness for the 6th gen or 16 to 18 Camaro SS or RS headlights. We have a 16 SS here, and this harness will allow us to keep this lower eyebrow bright at night all the time instead of dimming, and when you turn your blinker on, it will remain on and it doesn't make your headlight look like it's broken. Let's get into the install. So first step in this install, we actually need to remove the front bumper, and the reason why is we have to get to the plugs on the back side of the headlights, or in the instance even remove the headlights. So let's get right to that and walk through those individual steps. So there's a couple ways you can go about removing the front clip of your car, but do know that there's a couple pop clips on the top, or tree clips, and 15mm Torx bits. We do have to jump into the wheel well here. We're gonna crank the tire one way or the other. If your car is lowered or anything like that, you might have to put the car up on stands to get to these bolts. And there's a couple bolts across the front end of the car that we're gonna remove. We're gonna get all into that. So I'm gonna hand this camera off to Jared and we're gonna start pulling this thing apart. Okay, at this point, we have the whole front end undone on the bottom and top side. So now we got to get to the bolts that are sitting right in here by removing the fender. We're not going to remove the fender liner, but we're going to loosen up 3 bolts, and I'll show you how to do it. So what we're going to do is we're going to remove these 3 bolts here, and then there's a bolt. Well, this bolt's actually not there, but there should be a bolt here, and that will allow us to get the fender liner moved and out of position. Okay, so at this point there's going to be 4 7mm bolts lining up the inside of the fender just in here. We're going to remove those, and then there's 1 bolt here, a 7mm bolt, that are holding these 2 pieces together right there. So you can see we have a little flexi bit here that's going to make it really easy to get this top one. Sometimes you might have to manually do it, so. That's all the bolts. Now it's rinse and repeat on the other side. So at this point we have all the bolts off, and that 1 bolt that we undid on both sides, you just basically pop that out. You hear that pop. Do that on both sides. So now it's free. And the other thing that I want to highlight is when you do pull this off, you can see the paint and this trim can catch on this bolt here and here. You want to make sure it's lifted just above so you can get it off. So keep that in mind. And before you pull the bumper, there is a bumper harness cable sitting right up here that needs to be disconnected. You'll have to disconnect that, and then the bumper will come right off without any hitch. So you can see, here's the bumper harness. We unclipped it. Here's the other end. So basically slide the red clip out, slide it out. This could be difficult to pull. Typically what we found is push down on the black, push in, and then pull out. Comes out really easily. But outside of that, bumper is off. Now we can show you how to put the new harness on. So at this point, to get our harness on, you will have to remove the headlights. There are, I believe, 4 bolts, could be 3. So there's a bolt here, there's a bolt here, and a bolt down here that's holding, oh, and one right here, so there is 4. And then to get, you'll see these little alignment tabs, they're sitting in this little opening right here. This isn't really bendable, so we'll loosen this 10mm bolt here on both sides so we can lift this up just to get the light to come out. And that will give you enough room to lift that up, as you can see. So I usually like leaving this bolt up here. I mean, it's loose, but out just in case. I don't want the light to fall, because that would not be cool. So now at this point that I have these out, I'll take this bolt off, lift up here, and that allows you to remove the light. So one thing when you do pull your headlight, you know, easily unclips, but the one thing I do so it's not having to dangle, you can pull your amber blinker. Basically there's a little push clip, it literally pulls right out, and just twist this to the side and pull it out, and that way you can just set your headlight down nicely and work with the new harness for the install. You're gonna have 2 plugs on your driver's side. You're gonna have the plug that goes into the headlight, and then the original headlight plug is gonna go into the back side. And then you're gonna have a plug that goes into your front bumper harness, which is mounted right here. Remember the one that we undid to actually get the bumper off? So literally, you can see here, just slide that in. Now this goes into the bumper harness that's hanging right over here. When you put your bumper back on now, you can flip this around and it will sit exactly how it did in the first place. And then now we have this new plug that's gonna go into the headlight. Jared, if you can grab the headlight. Sorry, I got everything backwards here. It's backwards day. So put that in, lock it in place, and then you get the standard, or the original, lock that in place, and you're good to go. And it's rinse and repeat on the other side. At this point, we need to do the add a fuse. So you will see the add a fuse in your harness. There's 1 fuse in there already. That's what we utilize to power our setup, but you will be taking the fuse out of your fuse box and putting that fuse into this block as well. If you don't do that, it will not work. So in this instance, it requires us to tap into fuse 50, or we're using slot 50. Your car should have a fuse puller. If not, you can use a pair of pliers. We know exactly where 50 is already, so there it is right there. You can do it, Jared.
I got it.
Oh. No, you don't. He spoke too soon.
Oh, come on. Seriously.
There you go. Now we're gonna, again, take that fuse, put it into this fuse block. You do need both, I can't stress that enough. And then we'll just stick this fuse right back in place. Now there's multiple ways that you can run the wire through the fuse box so the lid sits on nice. What we typically do is we'll take a file right here in the corner, and that way it will allow you to run this wire, tuck it in, so the lid of your fuse box sits right back on perfectly. So at this point, you'll start getting your headlights in and stuff. You'll start to realize you're gonna have a cable here running across, and you could really choose how you wanna run that. A lot of people like to run it and zip tie it along this line right here. This is your power line and whatnot for a few things, including your horns. Or some people like to tuck it underneath and run it just in front of the condenser, which you can kind of reach from under here. So there's a lot of things and ways that you could do it. Again, it all comes down to your personal preference. Do it how you see fit. We just recommend that you make sure that this is fastened. So if you have a couple zip ties, just zip tie it down in place so it's not waving around like a crazy snake. Now, before we start buttoning up everything, we just have 2 bolts holding in the headlights right now. We got all the harness ran how we want it ran. Now we're gonna have Jared right now flip on the eyebrows, which they turn on. Might be hard to see in the camera. Let's do headlights, high beams, and I don't think we could test the blinkers without the card being on and off. So we'll do that in a second. And they all work. We're good to go. So at this point, we just got to button up the whole car, put it back together, and we're good to go. If you guys have any questions, hit us up at gen5diy.com or email us at info@gen5diy.com.